What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Active Self-Protection Extra. I am Christopher Bean with Tactical Advantage, and today we're going to talk about exploring the concepts of grip.
Today's video is brought to us by Mantis. The Mantis family of products is integral to ASP staff building handgun and carbine skills and are your most economical and fastest path to improvement in your skills too. Whether you choose the X10, the Laser Academy, the Blackbeard, or use them all in concert, they will help your practice be more effective, efficient, and fun. Go check them out, pick up a unit, and thank them for sponsoring today's video.
So, welcome back, everybody. So what I thought I would do today is just talk about how does one go about exploring how they apply grip to a pistol for the most favorable results. I think what I see a lot of times are people try and teach their grip to other shooters, and in my experience, emulation of someone else's grip doesn't always yield as much as it could for a shooter that's trying to learn the best way to do it for them. So what I've tried to do is kind of just explore the idea or the principles as some great instructors kind of explain it, and then kind of wrap my own mind around it and how I go about either finding the right grip or understanding, can I get through a particular exercise or a shooting problem with the grip I have, and if it's not optimum, how do I make changes? So with that said, very simply, the perceptual concept for me, I kind of broke it down into like CLP. Contact, leverage, and pressure. So from a contact perspective, really all I want to try and do is get as much of me on a gun as possible, right? Because friction lends itself to arrest movement. So that's really the part of the first thing I think about. Can I get as much of me onto the firearm as possible? That's the easiest way to kind of start thinking through that. Then we have leverage. The leverage really equates to where are you putting you on the gun. Some great instructors, Tim Harum being one of them, and someone that I pay a lot of attention to with his explanation of grip, talks about building a wall behind the gun with structure, which I think that is a great analogy. And have no issue with how he explains that at all. It's really just a function of where and how can you do this. And then we have pressure. And pressure is just equating with how much force are you putting into the contact and the leverage. Excuse me. So if you run through those three things, you've kind of got all the bases covered, right? So you can start explaining or figuring out for yourself what's going to work best for you and repeatable results for your shooting. So from a contact perspective, like I said before, I try and get as much of me on the gun as possible. So, I really don't have much of an issue with my strong hand, but really figuring out what I'm doing with my support hand, that's where there's a whole myriad of ways you can go about it. One thing I see a lot is extreme canting with the support hand where people want to get that thumb on the gun. Great, cool. One thing I've noticed when I do that is I can't generate pressure with this side of the hand. So I'm sacrificing pressure for contact. Okay, cool. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just one thing I've noticed. So when you do that, I cannot generate pressure onto the grip portion of the gun, or not as much pressure as I'd like to. So that's one issue. Then we go into leverage. The simple things with being as high on the fulcrum as you can with how this reciprocates. Do you want pressure on the back of the gun because the force is actually doing that? Yes. Right? So you can just make some changes, mild changes to get behind the gun. And lastly, pressure. You hear people talk about squashing walnuts or doing things like that. I just think for me personally, it's more about having an opening getting my secondary hand on it, and can I still generate a semblance of force, right? So all of these kind of are simple things. And I know you guys are asking, well, he's not telling me exactly where to put my hands, or he's not telling me exactly where to put my fingers or how to squeeze here or there. I really try not to do that because I don't understand your variables as a shooter, much like you can't understand mine. So I can show you how I grip a gun, but that all is in a constant state of development and change. So that's why I like to think through these overarching concepts, and then the perceptual comes in with how the gun behaves when I'm applying these different pillars or concepts. That kind of informs me what's going to happen. So to get into like the grip harder crew, right? So I have a hand dynamometer that I use, and just to kind of give you guys some ideas, so my grip pressure on the right hand is 106.2 pounds, and on the left hand, 91.2 pounds. That's my maximum force that I could generate today on that dynamometer. But I also, a non-scientific test, mind you, tried to figure out how much reasonable force do I input into the gun, and the numbers I kind of came up with were about 42 pounds with my right hand and 70 pounds with my left hand. Now that's still a considerable amount of force, but not nearly my maximum. So the point I'm trying to make is at any given point in time, something can be compromised in the grip, be it contact, be it leverage, or be it pressure. And it's kind of like a pie chart. Anywhere that you have something that's not optimum, you can make up for it in the other square. So say you have an injury and you have a hard time generating significant force, or you have arthritis and you have a hard time generating force, then you really need to think about leverage and really need to think about contact because the pressure is compromised. If you have bad contact, you really should be thinking about leverage, and you really should be thinking about pressure. So all of these things kind of work together. And I think more often than not, people are like, well, it has to be this way. And if you do it this way, which is everyone else does it, or one size fits most, you'll get the best result you can get. I find that not to be the case. So really, I know this is kind of heady, but I really want more people to explore how they grip and then take these ideas, go to live fire and see how the gun behaves under those different things, and then say to themselves, is this the behavior I want from the gun? Is this the behavior I want from the sights? And if it is, now you're on to something versus just trying to blindly emulate what someone else is doing. Because what that does, it gives people an excuse to disregard the behavior of the gun because they believe the way someone else approaches it will yield them the same results, which isn't what always happens. And that's not discounting the way anyone explains it. It's just, it lacks autonomous questioning of the ideas. And I'm all about questioning it for yourself to figure out what works best for you. So again, we'll go through really quick from a contact perspective. As much of you that you can get on this gun is going to help you. So anywhere that you can kind of find a way to fit or close gaps or do things like that, like if you can see that there versus that, is going to be helpful. Leverage. Really paying attention to the physics of what happens with reciprocating mass. Getting behind reciprocating mass, getting as close to the moving portion as possible, again, is going to help you. And then lastly, pressure. How much force? That's going to be purely subjective for you. So if you can't generate a ton of force, look at the other two. If you can't generate a ton of contact, like you're working with a subcompact, things like that, look at the other two. That's kind of the key to this. So I will make other videos kind of going into the more nuance of grip and what changes in how my gun acts with that. But really I wanted to put out a video that really kind of looks at the top end, the 1,000-foot view of it, without getting into the myopic nature of grip. So with that, I hope that helps. I will see you guys next time. Thanks.